I was not familiar with The Piano Man's Daughter, but I read it and found it quite an intoxicating book. It's the kind of book that once you start, layer upon layer, very complex, it's hard to put down. And his ability to evoke this time period in Toronto, of all places, at the turn of the century, and it spans like 1890 to right up to the Second World War, was incredibly riveting. And so if you're familiar at all with the environment, seeing a historical context and seeing all of these interesting characters come to life was really an enjoyable read and a moving read. When you adapt a book, you have to immerse yourself in it so that you know it inside out. And then out of that, you create your own story and you almost create a new work out of it. So you sort of leave the author at a point and then make a transition to the world he's created, and then efficiently try to portray that world in a screenplay. The success of it is to create the impression that the audience is seeing what they remember of the original novel, but you do have to make story changes along the way. You generally preserve the characters, but you kind of create a whole new story structure and framework. It's really about two people don't ever come together without a reason, and it happens over and over again throughout this film through various different time periods. The story is originally set around the lead character's son in the 1930s, and he's a pianist, and it's got a lot of swing, a lot of jazz, a lot of dance in it, and he falls in love with this singer in this dance band that he's playing in, and he is, up until this point, been essentially a gigolo who has affairs only with older women because they're safe. He falls in love with this girl who will not let him go, and she's after him, she's after him, she's after him. He's incredibly sexually motivated by her, but he refuses to go that extra length because he's terrified of what would happen if he had a real relationship. Throughout the course of their relationship, he is forced to go back into his own past and his family's past. They're the Irish in Canada, there's first generation, full of superstition, curses. They're like the Kennedys. They have curses all over the place on them. And he has to go and work through all those things in his past. Ghosts, his incredibly eccentric mother, all of her wild bohemian relationships with men through the 20s. And he discovers something in that, in his own life and in her life, that allows him to go forward and have a normal relationship with this singer who is incredibly in love with him. This was a very, very large-scale production. We probably have a total of 80 different sets in it, spanning different time periods from the 1890s up until the late part of the 30s. We shot on location in around southern Ontario and in Toronto for a couple of weeks. We shot the Toronto Island, where we shot the RCYC as a great big summer hotel. We shot the canals over the island as England, so we go to England, France, Germany, back and forth to Toronto. It was pretty big in terms of what we had to accomplish. And notwithstanding, we were able to also use our studio facility here with our backlot and so many of the sets that exist within this complex that we were able to invent or reinvent into other locations. The casting choices are Stockard Channing as the lead character of Lily as an older woman, and then Marnie McPhail plays her as a 16-year-old to a 28-year-old. And then there are two other younger actresses who play her as a child and as a younger woman. I had to find 4 actresses that could play that one part over that time span. Then I chose Wendy Crewson. Wendy and I have worked together before on a couple of different projects. Then Christian Campbell, Neve Campbell's younger brother, plays the lead role of Charlie.
My character actually does span the entire story. So I start out young and I age right through. Lily, for example, is played by 4 different women. I, on the other hand, am just me from 22 to 89. So I think that's why it feels like I bridge them, because we get to see me, really me, throughout the entire thing.
Wendy ties the whole story through as the mother who goes from being this incredibly volatile and sensual young woman clamping down, and she's not able to have a life or deal with her daughter, who is this wild bohemian.
So lace up a corset and baby, you're feeling the problems of a woman in 1898. You know, you can't breathe, you can't sit down, you can't run, and their problems are universal. Are their problems any different than what we go through today? No. The human experience is universal. So you hit that chord, and it's no different then than it is now. The scene that I just did with R.H. Thompson, where he smacks me. What, you don't think women aren't getting hit still? Honey, this is a universal problem, you know? And what do you do about it? What do you do? You're stuck in this marriage. What do you do about it, you know?
It's almost more as though they're business partners, and she can't understand, you know, why he told her he loved her. She's an asset, and the transition happens in her mind when she starts to realize that this is the way her life is going to be, and she has to make some serious mental adjustments.
Kevin has the energy of a 15-year-old boy. Kevin bounds onto the set in the morning. He bounds back from lunch. He's bounding still at 4 o'clock in the morning when you're, you know. So what I adore about him is that endless well of energy that you can always tap into. I love having him on a set. I think he's fun, and we need more energy like this. Kevin's moving the furniture. He's doing your hair. He's fixing your makeup. He's, you know, he's sort of that, you know, I've got a barn, let's put on a play. And I love that about him.
All of us exist long before the visible parts of our lives begin. This flame was energy before I struck this match.
It's very close to the original novel, notwithstanding the fact that when you turn a piece of literature into film, one can't do it in kind of a rarefied transition. There were enormous challenges in it, and we have become extremely well known as producers of period drama. We're kind of like the merchant ivory of Canada. So one might say, well, why would you do another period drama? Partly because the project was so complex, and there were so many locations in it, and so many locations of enormous scale, that I found it very intriguing. Not to mention the layers of characters and time shifts and people and transitions, and the theme of the cycle of life. That's really what it is about.
What are you doing here? You got any room on your card?